Hi there everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel and I'm a real estate agent here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with RE/MAX 360 Realty. And I specialize in buyer's agency and relocation. So today I'm going to be talking about a very important subject if you would like to move to Pittsburgh and or buy a house in Pittsburgh. So as you know, all over the country there are bidding wars for houses. This is because of inventory. Inventory is very, very low right now nationwide, and it's really causing an effect on the housing market that I don't think anybody really anticipated. I think a lot of people expected the housing market to drop a little bit because of the interest rates going up, but really what this has done, the raising of the interest rates, it has caused buyers to compete for very limited inventory, causing a similar sort of competitive structure and sphere that we had in 2021 and 2022. With all that being said, it is very difficult to buy a house right now and win in these bidding wars. And I am seeing bidding wars on basically every house. The only houses that don't have bidding wars are the ones that have some kind of fatal flaw that is causing them to be more undesirable than most of the limited inventory that we have. If you want to win a bidding war here in Pittsburgh, in any neighborhood, stay tuned because I'm going to give you a couple ways on how we can tackle bidding wars if you decide to use me as your real estate agent here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So the biggest thing that's going to help you win a bidding war, and you know, this is a no-brainer, a true no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
You probably already know what I'm going to say. Cash. If you have cash to buy a house outright, that is probably going to be your most powerful tool in winning a bidding war because it circumvents the mortgage process or the lending process, which a lot of times falls apart in or on appraisals. So if you're buying in cash and you can skip that part, that is going to do you a world of good. It's gonna let you have a leg up on all of your competition and you're gonna be pretty much good to go against anything else you could do. Now, I'm starting out with that one because I know it is not exactly reasonable to expect people to have all this cash lying around. And most people are going to have to get a mortgage to buy a house. So let's move on to the next thing you can do. This one's pretty obvious too. It would be waiving inspections. So typically how I do this is I have people conduct inspections because I would never, ever recommend anybody doesn't get an inspection because it's not ethically good practice to recommend that people don't get inspections. So I always recommend them, but what I have my clients do is they buy the house as is. So they waive the right to negotiate on inspections. And a lot of the time, this actually works pretty well and the sellers are glad to hear it. Granted, there could be a little bit of an uncertainty with this strategy because there have been times where I've seen buyers say, oh, we're not going to negotiate on repairs, or we're not going to ask for price decreases, and then they turn around and ask for repairs and price decreases on the back end because the sellers, they're already invested, they're already locked in, they maybe already have another home under contract, and the buyer knows this. So they're gonna say, well, we're gonna try and negotiate anyway, even though we said we wouldn't, because the seller is limited on time and they're in a bind and they need this to close. They don't want to put their house back on the market, so we're gonna negotiate anyway. And as an agent, I don't like to operate that way. I don't like doing about faces, and I do everything in my power to make sure we are following the contract and we are doing what has been agreed upon. So if you decide to take that route of waiving negotiations, I highly recommend you do the ethical thing and stick to it. But if you're not comfortable with that, then there are other ways to win a bidding war that doesn't include that verbiage. You can raise the price of the house so much in your offer that you can plan on sort of making a decrease on the back end, but that's something else that the sellers are gonna sort of suss out. Like, they're gonna expect that you're gonna do that if you offer way more than the house is really worth. And you're gonna find appraisal problems with offering an exorbitant amount more than list price. So I think that strategy works to an extent, but I think sellers know in the back of their minds that they're not going to get the price you're offering because something is going to happen, whether it's negotiations or appraisal, that's gonna knock it down a couple pegs. But again, it's something that some sellers like to see, and some agents like to see it as well, although they probably will advise their client that that price is actually too high to qualify for like a reasonable appraisal. I think that a more effective strategy of getting the sellers on board with your offer is going to be a mixture of a high price, so I'd say $15,000 to $20,000 more than list, and in addition to that, paying the seller's closing costs is going to go a long way. So the reason this works is because you're not adding money to the home, which could affect the appraisal, and you're still saving the sellers a bunch of money. So at the end of the day, if you're paying their closing costs, they're going to net more, and it's a great way to circumvent the appraisal process as stated. I think that's a very, very powerful tool in the arsenal to pay either a portion of or all of the closing costs of the sellers. If you pay all of the closing costs, it's going to be a pretty good guarantee that your offer is going to be in the top of the pile. Another strategy I've seen used a lot lately is rent back. So sellers sometimes need some time, maybe 45, 60, 75 days to find their own home, to find a home on the flip side. And a lot of times these sellers will need the funds from the sale of their current home to buy their next home. So what they will do is they will negotiate a rent back with the buyer so that the buyer can close in 30 or 45 days, whatever works for them, because a lot of the time it's like needs to happen quick. And then after close, the seller will rent back, usually for under 30 days, so that they can get their stuff together, they can get their new home, they can make sure that they have a buffer period between getting their funds and buying their new home. They can get all their stuff moved out. It's a really, really, really good way to entice the seller that they don't need to rush, they don't need to panic, they can go at their leisure because they're going to rent back. Now, rent backs are tricky only for one reason really, and that's going to be insurance purposes. There is no insurance that exists that is going to have a homeowner's policy specifically cover you for those days that you are renting back to the seller. Now, I have run into this problem where my clients, they don't want to do a real rent back because they don't want to be landlords, they don't want to have the landlord's insurance, the fire dweller's insurance isn't sufficient, and the homeowner's doesn't cover it. So before you agree to do a rent back, make sure you're looking into insurance options for a rent back and make sure that those insurance options work for you, because you're going to be in a tight spot if for some reason something catastrophic happens within the days of the rent back and you are left out in the cold because the underwriters don't cover you. No insurance company can guarantee you 100% that they will cover any scenario. It is ultimately up to the underwriters to do that. So anytime you're doing a rent back, you are taking a little bit of an insurance risk, although minuscule, and it is definitely something to consider if insurance is something that makes you uneasy. But again, insurance policies are just tricky anyway. I think all insurance companies are looking to CYA, if you know what I mean. And you just have to make sure you're comfortable with the coverage you're going to be getting, whether you're a temporary landlord, whether it's dweller's fire, or whether it's, you know, standard homeowner's insurance policy. Another problem I've actually seen with rent backs is the seller not leaving the property whenever they were slated to leave it. And again, these are things that I've heard of and seen very rarely, so it's very rare that they're going to happen, but it's best to keep in mind that all of these things are a possibility whenever you are doing a rent back, and a lot of these things can be really, really, really a big pain in the egg, if you know what I mean. Other simple things you can do to make your offer more attractive. Put down more hand money. So that means if you try to walk away from the deal without fulfilling your end of the bargain, you lose a lot of money. And that's gonna make sure you're keeping to the contract. Or you can put down more money, like you can do 25%, 30% down, but it's probably better if you have the cash to actually pay for the seller's closing costs than put down more money, because it's just gonna look more attractive to the seller. So if you have money to play with, I think that is really like the gold standard of negotiating right now. You can write a love letter. Some sellers don't like it because well, I won't say some sellers don't like it. I don't know any seller that wouldn't like a love letter unless they were like just this really unsentimental person. Sellers' agents don't like it a lot because it causes the seller to make an emotional decision when really it should be a head-centered financial decision for all sellers. And I am totally on board with that. Like, I think it should be, you know, at the end of the day, it is a financial transaction and it is a financial decision. I have seen love letters in my own business work very well, but it just depends on the seller and it depends on the seller's agent. And, you know, I think we're moving to a place where love letters aren't going to be as effective just because of the nature of the way our economy is right now, and everybody's really trying to like make sure their finances are super in order. So that's like the last thing I would do. I mean, it's not necessary, but it's something you can add in as a little like nice touch to show the sellers that you're like this great person buying this most wonderful home that you're going to spend the rest of your life in, and it's going to be wonderful. So if that's the impression you want to give off, great. The love letter, let's do it. Overall, I think the key to winning bids right now is having money. And I know that sounds terrible, but having money to play around with, to have money to put down, to have money to pay closing costs, to have money to buy, it's just gonna be really, really key right now. I do feel bad for a lot of people my age because I know that they're relying on limited funds, FHA and VA loans, and all of that kind of stuff. But in this market, it's gonna be tough to get a home with those types of loan programs and if you're working with very limited funds. So that's definitely something to keep in mind if you wanna buy a home in the near future. I would just make sure you have enough money saved where you can be a powerful negotiator and you can have a powerful bid on your dream home. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked this video, please press that like button and subscribe for more content. If you have any content that you would like to see about the Pittsburgh real estate market, I am always open to suggestions. If you are a first-time home buyer and you're a little bit confused about the home buying process, I do have a first-time home buyer's guide that I can give to you whenever you fill out a form on my website, and I also have a relocation guide you can grab if you fill out another form on my website, and both of those are going to be free to anybody that signs up on my website, and those links will be in the descriptions box down below. So again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Your viewership means the world to me, and your business also means the world to me. See you next time. Bye-bye.